What I wrote is a short little spiel that will include several excerpts from people whom I think are great Americans.
Mark Twain.
Thanks, man. The title of this piece is called American Lighthouses. 4th of July, 2014. Darkness. Light sweeps the horizon. Darkness. The light sweeps again, and as it stops blinding you, its beam is so vibrant it looks palpable. A holdable illumination. A light beam sweeps through the blackness. In 1971, USA, the beam of light clattered and zipped to the sound of a typewriter. The light reeked of cigarettes and wild turkey. It swept across Nevada, gathering material to fuel its guiding light. American history is riddled with these strange lighthouses. These lighthouses, these Americans, have been drug freaks, poets, lawyers, stand-up comedians, folk singers, rappers, reverends, and rarely, occasionally, politicians. True lighthouses take nothing for granted. They see through laws and stigmas and dogmas and tradition. They observe humanity. Often, our dear country has obscured humanity. It can fog our seas with distractions, wealth, advertisements, and these times ignite American lighthouses. And once a lighthouse is lit, it has no choice but to shine through the darkness. Light sweeps the horizon. These lighthouses forever change the outline of the United States. Take the 1960s and all that's implied when I say the 1960s. The birth of modern environmentalism. Drugs, free love, civil rights, community, world peace, man. All led by Pete Seeger, the great Junior. Dylan, Kennedy's. Where did these disobedient 1960s Americans gather their inspiration? Henry David Thoreau, a privileged Massachusetts. Does anyone know what that's?
Masshole.
Masshole? Oh, sorry.
Privileged masshole.
Henry David Thoreau, a privileged masshole, born in 1817. Light sweeps across the horizon. Thoreau is jailed. He will not pay taxes in a land of slaves. He will not pay taxes in a country of war. He loves Americans. And here are a few of his words on our government. This American government does not keep the country free. It does not settle the West. The government does not educate. The character inherent in the American people has done all that has been accomplished, and it would have been done more if the government had not sometimes gotten in the way. But to speak practically, and as a citizen, unlike those who call themselves anarchists, I ask not once for no government, but I ask at once for a better government. Let every person make known what kind of government would command their respect. That will be one step toward obtaining it. Light sweeps across the horizon, shining to Americans, jailed by his government for his opposition to slavery and war. Thoreau repudiated complacency, and he demanded his country always strive for the betterment of humanity. He wrote, "Let your life be a counter-friction to stop the machine." And this idea burned itself into American consciousness. Begat Martin Luther King Jr. And that light was followed by the American dissenters, humanitarians, revolutionaries, generations unto where we gather today in the Whiteaker Firehouse. Where was I? Okay, 1971, Las Vegas. Light sweeps across the horizon. A cloud of cocaine bursts from a convertible, and a prevalent Chicano movement lawyer screams and swats the air in backcountry. Dr. Hunter S. Thompson is on the hunt for the American identity post-1960s. His generation, he's lived through the 60s, and he's watched generational ideology get assassinated. he saw that man get elected. Thompson's light shone in those darkest nights. You'll hear this quote later if you watch any of the movie, but I'm going to underline it now. Strange memories on this nervous night in Las Vegas. 5 years later, 6. It seems like a lifetime, or at least a main era. The kind of peak that never comes again. San Francisco in the middle 60s was a very special time and place to be a part of. Maybe, just maybe, it meant something. Maybe not. Maybe in the long run, but no explanation now. No mix of words or memories can touch that sense of knowing that you were there and alive in that corner of time and that world. Whatever it means now. History is hard to know because of all the hired bullshit. But even without being sure of history, it seems entirely reasonable to think that every now and then the energy of a whole generation comes to a head in a long, fine flash. For reasons that nobody really understands at the time and which never explain in retrospect what actually happened. There was madness in any direction, at any hour. If not across the bay, then the Golden Gate, or down the 101 to Los Altos or La Honda. In the 60s, you could strike sparks anywhere. There was a fantastic universal sense that whatever we were doing was right, that we were winning. And that, I think, was the handle. That sense of inevitable victory over the forces of old and evil. Not in the mean or military sense, we didn't need that kind of victory. Our energy would simply prevail. There was no point in fighting on our side or theirs. We had the momentum. We were riding the crest of a high and beautiful wave. This is still Thompson, by the way. So now, less than 5 years later, you can go up a steep hill in Las Vegas and look west. And with the right kind of eyes, you can almost see the 60s high water mark. That place where the wave broke and then rolled back. Light sweeps the horizon. 22 years later, in his book, Kingdom of Fear, Thompson still shone. And part of the reason I think this is important to talk about is because the movie that we'll play kind of writes him off as a lunatic. But this guy was critiquing American society not as a Democrat, not as a Republican, but as a human being that was looking at humanity. And he did it for fucking 30 years. And he's not just some drug freak, he's someone that you all should read.
Drug freak.
And there's nothing wrong with drug freaks. So tonight, friends, countrymen, fellow citizens, as we revel in our great Americanness, and I do think that we are a great people.
USA!
USA! USA! USA! USA! USA! USA!
Cascadia!
That's another lecture. As we revel in our great Americanness, and I do think that we're a great people, as we celebrate our independence from the British, an event which was supposed to take the power back from kings and give it to the people, an event, that thing I just said, please, let us not celebrate empty ideology. We will celebrate. And I need to shout out to Hop Valley for donating this keg. Let us celebrate American humans. Those lighthouses who see through propaganda, advertisements, those lighthouses who chastise our national corruption and atrocities. May those lighthouses shine on you. Not because you're American, but because you're human.